These are the 5 NFL situations that nobody can stop talking about because a little bit of drama on today's show. It is the Audible Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund Bloom, and Brian Robinson. Oh boy, Sigmund. When Corey Krosky Merritt, one is at the Shrine game, we talked about him on this show, and yeah, it's a dazzling running back that can do it all. Somebody's going to get a steal. The Commanders got a steal in the 7th round. I had initially thought, I think around the time we recorded preseason watch list, I was like, okay, what does this mean for Austin Eckler? Krosky Merritt, kind of a smaller, compact guy. He's not a small back by any means, but still, I was thinking, Robinson and Krosky Merritt, if that guy blows it up, and then what does that mean for Eckler? Well, that was wrong because now the Commanders are going to move on from Brian Robinson. So how does this situation play out? And I understand because there's a lot of, well, that's just a 7th rounder. He should have never been drafted in the 7th round for Krosky Merritt. So we got to stop with that. I think that's lame fantasy analysis of like, well, the 7th rounder. Yeah, okay. Most recently, Isaiah Pacheco. Like we could go on and on, and I understand for every Isaiah Pacheco, there's 20 of these other guys. Not Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt. Watch football. Fantasy football analysis is pretty easy. I'm spicy this morning, Bloom. It's pretty easy. Watch football.
Good. Do you watch the games?
Do you even watch football? Corey Krosky Merritt can flip and play, and the Commanders are moving on from Brian Robinson. Yeah. What the what?
Yeah, and there's some stuff to tease out here. And see, what's really interesting as we're speaking to our wonderful, beautiful audience here on August 21st is you feel the NFL's jittery. The NFL's jittery. Like we're seeing these 6th round, 7th round pick trades. Sky Moore got traded, Harrison Phillips got traded. Some teams are like swapping end of the roster guys, but there's tremors of more. More is coming, and you're starting to see bubbling up to the surface how teams feel about individual players and how they feel about their depth chart. And we'd heard even go back to last year that Washington wasn't super into Brian Robinson, right? And now it seems like he's not playing in Washington this year. It's a question of where he's going to play. I think Pretty Ricky, I don't know if you're into Pretty Ricky and some of the stuff that he puts out there. I want to say he's putting out there Miami, which Miami is a team that has reasons to not be happy with their backfield right now. Devin Achane's hurt. Alexander Madison went down. Jalen Wright hasn't been impressing. Ollie Gordon maybe will be something down the line. So that's something to watch there. But you have Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, and this might be as much about Brian Robinson just not being a fit as they love Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt. But they have Austin Eckler. They know what he can do. They know what Jeremy McNichols can do. He's a useful running back. And then Chris Rodriguez is a no-nonsense. He was an Eric Bieniemy guy, right? Like a no-nonsense grinder, a downhill back. So I think, and maybe, I know there hasn't been items yet about Deebo Samuel seeing work in the backfield, but we know that he can also get some things done, carrying the ball out of the backfield too. So perhaps he fills the gap. But I think we have to look at the Washington backfield without Brian Robinson and then ask, where is he going to end up? Miami comes to the front of the line. I think Cincinnati would be interesting depending on what they feel about Taj Brooks as the complement to Chase Brown. I think Houston is another team we have to look at that has to be looking at their backfield right now and saying, is this what we're going to go into the season with? So, and see, I think this is not the last move we're going to hear. And I'm going to give you a tip of the cap because you were picking up on the vibrations. Just the name was wrong. But you knew one of these seemingly entrenched backs in Washington, not so untrenched. And that's not, there's these moves, they're coming, Cease, and it's a Denver show. Denver's making moves too.
Yeah, Denver making those moves. And well, hey, I just always have to give a tip of the cap to my man Adam Peters with the Commanders.
Yeah.
Although the Terry McLaurin situation, at time of this recording, Adam, you could be doing a better job with that, because for me, it's as simple as pay the man, pay the man, pay the man. The Denver Broncos have moved on from Devaughn Vele as something that I had suggested a couple of weeks ago, just looking at training camp and knowing like, okay, they have a ton of wide receivers. And this really has to do with the emergence of Troy Franklin. Now, we can talk about the number 2 in Denver. The number 2 in Denver is actually 4th in the pecking order. So for fantasy value, I'm not sure how much you're going to be able to harvest or mine there, because that 4th guy is, probably going to catch, well, like Devaughn Vele, 40 catches, right? So Marvin Mims officially is like the number 2 on the depth chart, but Troy Franklin is working into that. By the way, Pat Bryant is as well. But Devaughn Vele is moved to the Saints. So I think it's an opportunity for him where he can be the Saints' number 2 receiver and build on those 41 catches that he has as a rookie last year with the Broncos. So for Vele, it was just a numbers game of like, wow. And you have practice squad guys, Joaquin Davis, Kyrese Rowan, Jawan Newton, right? So you have practice squad guys that are looking pretty good for the Broncos as well. But I really think this has to do with Troy Franklin and what he's been able to do. I'm not saying he's running the full route tree. Marvin is, by the way, he's running the full route tree. I don't think Troy is, but he's probably running 6 of the 9 routes. And he's emerging in, kind of that Oregon favorite target of Bo Nix. Yeah, besides Cortland Sutton and Evan Ingram, and then those running backs out of the backfield. So again, Vele traded means good things for Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims, Pat Bryant, but these 3 receivers are going to split the 4th spot
Right.
in the pecking order for the Broncos.
Yeah, Sean Payton, he seems happy, right? He's loosening up.
He is having 35-minute press conferences that make me want to drive my car into the embankment. Like, dude, you don't need to go on. I don't need a 35-minute story on why you love Mickey Loomis. Like, come on, man. Sean's a little overboard. He's going to get grumpy pretty soon. Have him lose to Tennessee in week 1, and then he'll talk to us for like 5 minutes.
Right, exactly. You'll see him for 5 seconds. So he even said, you guys can decide who the number 2, number 3, number 4 receivers are. He said they're all going to have a role. When they dress, they're going to have a role. Some teams, he said something to the effect of like, some teams have like slot XZ. We rotate guys in different positions. We do different things. You guys can decide who number 2, number 3, and number 4 are. But like you said, Cease, for fantasy, if you listen to what Sean Payton's saying, it's that none of these guys are going to be consistent week to week. Franklin will have some long touchdowns. Mims will have some long touchdowns, hopefully, for this team. And they have some best ball value, but the pecking order is established. And hey, Cortland Sutton messing things up for Terry McLaurin. Those two things are connected because Cortland Sutton took a reasonable extension at his age, at his point in his career. The Terry McLaurin says, I don't want that. That's an insult. So I think if we take something out of this Denver thing, it's that Cortland Sutton is entrenched and is still the number 1 receiver. Like, there's no doubt about that. Evan Ingram's going to have his role. And like you said, if you like RJ Harvey, this is maybe a path for RJ Harvey to catch 40, 50 balls this year. On the Saints side, I think Bub Means, wide receiver going down. I think that plays into the sum. They just look at their depth chart after Olave and Shaheed, and Olave hasn't always been able to stay on the field, and Shaheed hasn't always been able to stay on the field. Who else do they have? Remember, even at tight end, Foster Moreau is still coming back. Taysom Hill is still coming back. They have Jawan Johnson. So I think that's kind of where the Saints are. The Saints are the last team to name their starting quarterback, but we know who their number 3 wide receiver is going to be.
We got that down. We are good to go. This is a larger conversation than perhaps we have times for, but we're going to have to be brief on it. It's the Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson thing. They've given up on the number 4 pick. Richardson is so far away from being a starter that you want consistently. I've heard about reclamation projects and Sean Payton should get his hands on Anthony. Okay, Richardson, to my knowledge, would have to change a lot about what he's doing behind the scenes to reclaim himself as a franchise level quarterback. That's what the Colts had an idea of. They're going with Daniel Jones. Not great, Bob. What does this mean? What does it mean for Anthony Richardson? Did he get the message? It's and listen, with all due respect to Chris Ballard and everyone with the Colts, they're desperate. They're desperate. They have no idea what the future holds. And you can tell they're desperate, Bloom, through their actions and really through this action, because honestly, you give AR another season, it goes in the tank because he gets hurt, most likely. Besides his on-field skill needs massive improvement, but like it's most likely Anthony Richardson to get hurt if he's starting more than 5 games. Yeah, but then they go down with the ship. They go down with this is the guy we took at number 4 instead of going to Daniel Jones. So again, I'm trying to be nice to Chris Ballard and company, but y'all don't really know what you're doing.
No, that's the thing, is there's tension between short-term and long-term goals. And I forget who it was that put out their cease. This is not a learning league. This is not a league that you come into to learn.
Yes.
Okay. And I think hopefully what happens with these cases like Trey Lance and Anthony Richardson is the league understands, hey, maybe you are so excited to take one of these toolsy, inexperienced quarterbacks that you do take them in the top 5, but you can't treat them the way we typically treat the top 5 quarterback who has to get on the field as early as possible and has all the expectations put on them in their rookie year, because it's about reps, because they haven't had the reps. And learning on the job in the NFL, it just isn't compatible with a league where everybody's looking over their shoulder about job security. And Matt Waldman talks about like what's good for the shareholders versus, what's good in the short term. And what's good is to see this Anthony Richardson thing out to its finish. Like you said, the finish might be negative, but let's just actually play it out. And I think what you're looking at instead is this team saying, Shane Steichen saying, well, I think Daniel Jones gives us a better chance to win, in week 1 against Miami. And they may look good against Miami with their brand new secondary. If there's a team in a worse place than Indy right now, it's probably Miami, right? But from a fantasy standpoint, this is bad. I think that we could have looked at 4 different outcomes here, and I'm going to rank them in order of like the best to worst. The best outcome would have been that Anthony Richardson actually wins the job, like actually goes into camp and they're like, he did everything we wanted him to do and he won the job. The second best outcome would be Daniel Jones did everything we wanted him to do, and he won the job. Neither of those things happened. The third best outcome would be neither of these guys really won the job, but let's see what Anthony Richardson can do. We're going to give him a long leash. We're going to let him actually try and learn on the job, and maybe we're going to be some losses, break a few eggs to make an omelet. But by the end of the year, we're going to really know if he's the franchise quarterback. And then the fourth one, which is where we ended up, is nobody won the job. Let's just play Daniel Jones, who we already know who he is. Now, there's some injury situations. Josh Downs has a hamstring. I think Alec Pierce has a groin. So, this could be interesting. Adonai Mitchell, by the way, is having one of the best camps of any player for any team. So Adonai Mitchell with Daniel Jones, we saw Darius Slayton as a rookie break out in the one good year that Daniel Jones had. And it's why we're still talking about Daniel Jones, that one playoff win that he got. So maybe there's a glimmer for him or for Tyler Warren or for Michael Pittman. But overall, like you said, Cease, this shows us that the Colts are at a dead end. They're speeding towards a brick wall. They've got new ownership. It kind of just makes sense. They're going to clean the deck. Rest in peace, Jim Irsay. They're going to clean the deck and start over next year.
Yeah, just wipe it away and start over. Now, Sigmund, this is your specialty.
Yeah.
Because you want to talk about the Tampa Bay offense as a whole. I wanted to talk about Emeka Egbuka because I think I saw you tweeting about him, but you've got some other stuff to say about Tampa.
It all fits together, and it starts out with Jalen McMillan and that neck injury. Maybe he'll play this year. He may play like sometime after midseason. That sucks. Now you're seeing that Chris Godwin, where the expectation was, I think Scott Reynolds said he'd be shocked if he's not on the PUP to open the season. Well, Scott Reynolds, we love you, man, but prepare to be shocked because Chris Godwin's not going to start the season on the PUP list. That doesn't mean he's going to play right away. It sounds like they just want an opportunity that if he's ready to play in week 4, that he can play in week 4. And maybe that also, I don't know the official league rules about like when you're on the PUP list, like if you have to be away from the facility or you can participate in practice or can't participate in practice. So probably they're just looking at this and saying, we will give up a 53-man roster spot so that we can have Chris Godwin available. And maybe in bigger news, Christian Wirfs, their left tackle, also is going to be available. They're not starting him out on the season on the PUP list. So we may see Tampa starts out, I think, with Atlanta. We may see them have to scale up, but hopefully by week 4, week 5, week 6, you have Godwin and Evans and Egbuka. But Egbuka, would be a surprise. Chris Godwin was number 2 overall when he went down last year. Egbuka can be top 10 or top 15. He's going in the 6th or 7th round of drafts. And then even after Godwin's back, he's going to have to ramp up. And Egbuka, from all external indications, is ready to be a core player right now. Mike Sando, I think it was, at the Athletic, saying he could see him having a Justin Jefferson kind of rookie year. Hey, we don't need that for him to pay off at ADP. So I know, I'd love Tedero McMillan. I'd love Travis Hunter. But we might find out that Emeka Egbuka should have been the first rookie wide receiver drafted in redraft leagues.
Well, look at who's throwing on the ball.
Yeah. The
You
baby
know what I
maker.
mean? Yeah. Baker the baby maker. Let's get to the Northwest and talk about the Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet situation. This is kind of almost naturally working itself out because Walker, you'll be surprised, or
Yeah.
maybe not, that he's banged up, everybody, and it's leading to an opportunity that Zach Charbonnet is taking and running with.
Yeah, literally. And see, so I'm going to throw this back to you because I want you to talk about a couple of things. Okay.
Okay.
Brady Henderson had an article about Zach Charbonnet, basically indicating that the Seahawks can't just have him as a backup. Like, he has earned
Right.
more.
Right.
And he mentioned specifically that Kenneth Walker has only been in 4 practices. Okay. They're installing the Clint Kubiak offense, and he has participated in 4 practices this summer. And now
Disaster.
now you have Mike McDonald. Because look, earlier the reports on Walker, well, they're just making sure he's ready for week 1. Like, this is the program to make sure he's healthy for week 1. But now you have Mike McDonald saying, well, we're installing this offense, and at some point you can do as many walkthrough reps as you can, but at some point you actually have to be on the field. So put a pin in that. I want you to talk about how it is when a coach says that. And what is a coach saying when he says, you can do walkthrough reps? That's great, mental reps and all this stuff. But at some point, when we're putting in a new offense, you have to get on the field. And then Brady Henderson said, nobody for the Seahawks has said that Kenneth Walker's running back 1 job is up for grabs, but the way that he hasn't been available and the way Charbonnet's been practicing, you have to think this isn't going to be just like a starter backup situation. And the other thing I want you to put a pin in, so there's Mike McDonald's comments is, as a beat writer, as someone covering a team, there's a lot more restrictions now.
Very much so, yeah.
About what you can actually come out and say. Because a lot of people said to me, well, he's just speculating. That's just beat writer speculation. And I'm saying, in this day and age, you should be paying attention to how they word things, because sometimes they'll try to tell us things, Lassie barks, without telling us things.
Yes.
So I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, very much so. And just to understand who the source is, because we've had guys, at least locally, say like Devaughn Vele is never going to get traded. And when I suggested that 2 weeks ago, like people called me out. I don't care about that. I don't really follow along with that sort of mindset. It's low level vibration. Let's talk about that, Bloom.
Ooh.
But so know the source. When the source is saying something in a certain way, and they're a good source, not just someone trying to make a name on Twitter or whatever, of like, oh, I'm gonna say bold stuff. Like, no. That's a Lassie bark. That's 1000% a Lassie bark. And by the way, I thought you were gonna ask me about the Kubiak system. That's incredibly difficult for a back to learn. Unless you are naturally a wide zone guy, to learn wide zone, you got to run wide zone because it's entry point decisions and mesh point decisions. So you get to the entry point where you get the handoff, you know where to enter at the proper time, bend, bang, or bounce, but you've got to watch the mesh point of the blockers in front of you and then be able to decipher that while you're running in real time.
And Cecil, let me say that one of the other unanimous, I think that folks need to understand this because we get a lot of specific reports about players, but another unanimous drumbeat. Here's the drumbeat about a unit. Everybody's saying, hey, Clint Kubiak, and you can go ahead and nod along with this. Wow, this is what this guy knows how to do, install running game. Everybody watching Seattle practices and watching Seattle preseason that covers Seattle's like, well, that's done. Check that off the list. That running game is installed. They are in sync. Everybody understands it. They're ready to run it. It's going to be the signature unit and the front facing like point of the spear. And the question is, who's going to be at that point? Kenneth Walker has more to offer healthy than Zach Charbonnet. But
Sure.
Zach Charbonnet has a lot to offer. And if Zach Charbonnet is the one getting all the reps with this running game that is now in sync, well, what do you think happens next?
Why could Mike Shanahan go to his 7th running back, no hyperbole, and have it be fantasy relevant? And yes, I do believe we were doing the show back then when Peyton Hillis became a fantasy star because he was the 7th guy. Again, it's that system. It takes a great talent and elevates it. When you have a special talent like Clinton Portis or Terrell Davis, now you're a Hall of Famer if you're TD. It takes a regular talent and elevates you like, I love my guy Tatum Bell. Love my guy Tatum
Mike
Bell.
Anderson.
Yeah.
Ruben Drones.
Exactly. Those are 1,000-yard rushers, guys. So imagine taking a talent like Kenneth Walker if he was healthy, but imagine Charbonnet, who's 80% of Walker or whatever number you want to use. Like, it's going to elevate him as well. So
Yeah, and hopefully elevate your fantasy team. That's what we're here to do.
there you go. For 20 years, we've been doing it. It is the Audible here, and certainly appreciate everyone on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe to our channel. You want to support the show. The best way to do that is hit that like button and make sure to subscribe to us as well. Also, we don't have a tip jar, no silly super chat. So if you want to support the show, I love these guys, then please go to footballguys.com and get your subscription. We appreciate that. That's how you support the show. And that's why we've been able to do this for 20 years. He is Sigmund Bloom. You follow him on all the socials at Sigmund Bloom. I am at Cecil Lammey. The show is at The Audible, saying thanks for watching, everyone. Stay tuned. Watch the other videos and stay frosty.